Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 4 this season, coming to you today from Lime Rock Park. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me working the comms and the cams is Joshua Wilkie. Well, Josh, it's a bit of a staple here in Lime Rock on the Formula V Weekend Warriors calendar, but for the first time, we aren't running on the old classic configuration. We've got a chicane in the midst of this circuit. So today, these drivers and us in the broadcast booth may be venturing off into an unknown.
Yeah, definitely. We run this layout, quite a bit. I think all of us on iRacing have run this layout quite a bit. And I think this is probably one of the layouts that we all kind of have a little shiver when we hear it or when we see it. This is a difficult one for sure. It's not easy to get, especially on those opening couple laps, to get around here nice and clean and get through the chicane we see Jim Brewster going through right now. There are three very big curbs there that can ruin your day and can throw you into some other cars and stuff as well. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting one here, and a bit of a new challenge for Lime Rock, one that we all know really well.
Yeah, it may not be the biggest change in the world. It's a small little dogleg detour in the middle sector of this lap, but it can make a huge difference. Going to break it up quite a lot. And let's see what the challenge is going to be for these competitors as we ride on board with Jim Brewster, heading his way down off into turn number 1 and 2. This is Big Bend. This big bend. This is a very big turn in these race cars. It feels like it takes forever as you head your way off through there, but you still have some more challenges on your hand. This is left-hander of turn number 3, which if we are running on the normal classic configuration, it would pretty much be the only left-hander on the entirety of the lap. But as we head our way on to the Paul Newman straightaway, down into the uphill section, you've got the chicane to worry about and the killer inside curbs. You can see the red, I can't even call them sausage curbs because no sausage is that small. It's a pie curb. You hit that and you've just got to bounce up into the stratosphere. I remember one time running a Skip Barber race here. I broke my suspension on those curbs right at the very end and lost a chance at victory. Those drivers may have to be careful as they head their way up through there. Now down into downhill. This final turn going to keep that momentum rolling. This is a momentum track. You got to keep the speed rolling, keep the momentum going, and make sure you can remain in the draft. Jim Brewster, a driver who we have heard on many occasions, is somebody who grew up going to races at Lime Rock. He's always good on the drafting races, and based off the fact that last time out of the Saxon Ring was able to get his second Masters win of the season and a P2 finish at the end of that race as well. Look at Jim to maybe impress here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great showing last weekend at the Saxon Ring there. A bit of a different course for us there too. So, that was a definitely solid win, fully on merit there for Jim Brewster. Does like the draft tracks though, like you said, this one maybe not quite as drafty. That front straight's definitely going to allow you to pull some legs on your competitors there for sure. As we see, I believe this is Dan Chazinski here going into what I would call, I think, Ron, these are more like maybe pizza pocket curbs or calzone curbs maybe. I'm not really sure. Were you staking with the breaded treats and stuff there? I think it kind of more looks like a calzone, but you don't want to hit it, that's for sure. We do actually have a new driver out here today, and Martin Visser, I believe. I'm going to get that name correct. He's actually sitting in the pit right now, but he'll be with us in the Spec 2 class as well, so wondering what the 444 can do for us today as well. But yeah, it should be an interesting one out here for sure. There's a lot of laps, even in a V around here too, which can be a bit mind-bending, can't it, Ron?
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a tough task mentally running around this racetrack. The shortest track from this season. I mean, hey, Lime Rock, it's not a long facility. This only 1.5 miles for the track layout. Good opportunity for at the end of the race to just send it off into outer space as Dan Sazinski did, off into the runoff area down to turn number 1. But 9 turns around this 1.5 mile long racetrack, and some of the shortest laps that we will have from the entirety of the season. Even with the chicane, it only adds, I would say, probably about 2 to 3, maybe 4 seconds at most around here, so it will be a little bit tough as we are coming to the end of this qualifying session, though, about halfway through, with most drivers already saying sometimes. Tortello, top of the board, Trip Isley, top of the competitors in Spec 2, with Jim Brewster, top of the racers in the Masters category. I think it's probably high time that we take a brief look at the championship point standings as we head off into this round of the championship, kind of get a good picture as to how the first quarter of Season 4 4 of 2025 has already been. We'll start off with Spec 1, where Felix Samoes is your top running racer currently. Was able to get his first win of the season last time at the Saxon Ring and holds on to 283 points as his current tally. Josh Justice is rear gunner in that, slotted in P2, about 41 points back. And then a little bit farther back from him is Stefan Heemskerk in the number 96 car. Parvner Ladar and our SMB colleague, Mr. Guido Marzuki, round out your top 5 in the Spec 1 point standings heading off into this round of the championship. You can see the rest of the drivers linked there: Michelle, Lynn, Tortello, and many others throughout that field. Now we take a look at Spec 2, where it's been a bit more up in the air. All of our classes, with the exception of Masters, have seen 3 different race winners up to this point in the season. And Spec 2 is always topsy-turvy, and you can see it right now in the points. Stefan Westcott and David McLean currently separated by 8 points as their current tally right now. That's pretty close. Dan Szynski and his brother Brian were P1 and P2. However, they were at the SCCA National Championship runoffs last weekend, where Brian was running in a real-life Formula V the exact same day as last race at the Saxon Ring. So they were absent last week. They're here this week, and they're going to look to try and regain their spots. Szynski, Dan Szynski, slot in P3. Ken Hadu and Brett Thompson, your Spec 2 winner last time at the Saxon Ring, ran at the top 5. And now we'll take a look at the Masters category, where very early on this season, it's been the Jim Brewster's show, but because of the way that the points are tallied up here based off consistency and the fact that Jim wasn't here in the opening round of the championship at Phillip Island, he's down in third. Kurt Nunez is your current championship points leader. Wayne Buttermore slotted in second, only 10 back, and then Jim 5 back of Buttermore and 15 back of your current top runner of Nunez. Andrew Love, your race winner in the opening round at Phillip Island, is slotted in P4. Alan DeGassis rounds out your top 5 in that always competitive Masters category. I mentioned the SCCA National Championship runoffs just last weekend. They were being held, and many of the drivers that you see out there on the racetrack were competitors there. There is one driver, though, who was involved in the media side of things. Definitely a little bit biased when we say we always love that. It's Brian Belansky, who I believe we can drag him in to have a quick little chat, because I think we're lining up on the grid here. So we'll drag him in. Brian, sorry to bring you in so late. I think we got a starting grid to take a look at here soon, but thank you very much for sponsoring this broadcast here of the Formula V Weekend Warriors. How was that qualifying session that we just saw?
It sucked. But that's normal for me. It's all good.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Brian, and this is honest. I think you're doing a heck of a lot better than I would in a Formula V. There's a very good reason why I just stay in the broadcast booth. That's my personal prerogative. I don't want to go out there and just crash, because I would not be able to keep it clean like you do. But Brian, I'll ask you real quick to tell us a little bit about the Inside the SCCA podcast before we get off into this race here.
Yeah, Inside the SCCA podcast is all about Sports Car Club of America, real life racing. A lot of the guys in this race are part of the SCCA, so that's how I found them, and I'm just so happy to be able to race with these guys and gals, and to be able to help out and sponsor the broadcast. So, but we got time to go. We got to go racing here, so I'm going to let you guys go.
Yeah, have a great race, man. Take care. Sorry to drag you in so late, and good luck today. That right there was a sponsor of today's broadcast, Brian Belansky, joining us here in the commentary booth. And now we can take a look at the starting grid. Tortello going to start this race from the pole. Felix Samoa set to join him on the front row. Guido Marzuki going to start in third. Trip Isley in fourth. Nate Coliseo in fifth. Stefan Heemskerk in sixth. Parvner Ladar, Josh Justice complete row number 4. Ken Hadu, Jim Brewster running at your top 10. You can see the Szynski's in row number 6. And we'll just burn through the rest of the field right here. 21 starters in this race, very condensed in this pre-race show, but ready to get things up and rolling from the 4th round of the season here at Lime Rock Park. Got a new configuration to worry about. What's probably going to be a very challenging race for these competitors. Always a draft fest here at Lime Rock, but with that chicane, let's see if that breaks it up a little bit as the green flag is out and the drivers are on their way. We're racing today at Lime Rock Park. That's a pretty good start there from Tortello as he'll lead him down off into turn number 1. Tor, always a good racer in these draft-heavy races. Already has 1 win this season, that coming at the Sebring Club round for week number 2. Looking to get win number 2 here in week number 4.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty good start from Tor there for sure. He got a good rip right off the line there. Everybody pretty single file. Just a couple 2 wides there in the back look like Chris Montgomery. This is going to be the difficult spot right here. If we can get through this chicane nice and clean here on the first lap, That's the one I would be a little bit worried about if I was out there for sure. And it looks like so far we're getting through here pretty clean. Nice line astern. Somebody missing a nose in the back there. I'm not exactly sure who that was. We'll find that out. Might be Brian Bolinski, actually. We just spoke to him. Hopefully we did not spook him in the booth there, and he lost a nose immediately. A little bit of side-by-side in the background there as well. Looks like Joshua Justice, and I believe that's Heemskirk.
Yeah, the commentator's jinx striking another commentator, that one being the host of the Inside the SCCA podcast, and of course announcer for the SCCA. We'd love to have a longer chat with Brian, but based off the fact that we can only get through the top 10 before the start of this race, I think that would have been a bit of a tough ask, as that right there was Stefan Heemskirk nearly hopping the berm as he had his way out through turn number 1 and 2.
Yeah, I like how actually you called it a berm there. That corner actually does kind of feel like the edge is sort of a berm. Like you can almost use it. There's a lot of exit, a lot of kind of room into T1 there for sure on entry and on exit to kind of play with. It can be a bit of a dangerous spot, but lots of passing and stuff happening there. And yeah, he definitely got a little bit tail happy. Looking here at Jason Ryder, looking maybe to get it done up the inside. Thought better of it there for sure. Oh, somebody going for the rally line there for sure. I'm not exactly sure who that was. May have been Ken Poulin, possibly.
I think that may have been. It's been a hectic start here in this race at Lime Rock. Nunez, yeah, thank you very much for that, Josh. Nunez, unfortunately for him, dropping down in the early stages of this race. Do want to let you know about the class leaders. It's Tortello currently, but right now he's got Felix Samoas on the outside of him as they head their way down into 1 and 2. Samoas just clocked in a quick time at a 103.381. He still looks to hold on to that spot. That was a 301.358 there. Not sure where I got the 8-1 from, but there you go. Numbers popping in my head for the driver of the number 1 car, holding on to P2 and trying to get past your 3-time past champion.
Yeah, he's not an easy guy to get around. Actually what? During the race, he's not maybe the hardest guy to pass, actually, but at the end of the race, he's always going to be there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do actually kind of change lead here once or twice, or maybe even more than once or twice, as we see Guido Marzucci here and Nate Colascio just bringing up the rear here, definitely getting a bit of speed. Would not be surprised if we see a bunch of lead changes here, but at the end of the race seems to be where Tor is always there. He's even if it's just by 100th or 1,000th of a second, he's going to be there as we're going too wide down the front straight. I think we're going to see a lot of this race. You can see them fanning out in the background as well. I think that's the likes of Michelle Lynn and some other drivers there in the back. Samoa is going to take the lead into T1.
Yeah, so Samoa is going to jump into that top running spot. Tortello now going to have to try and formulate a way to get past between now and the very end. Already a 10th of the way through this race. The top 4 have broken off and driven off into the sunset. Parvin Ladora is your P5 runner and top of the best of the rest currently. He leads a small little trio of cars with himself. Trip Isley, your current leader in the Spec 2 category, and Josh Justice holding on to P7 currently. So that's how it stands at the moment. A little bit farther behind those racers up at the front end, there is that battle with Ladar in that always nice looking number 3 machine. A very unique looking car. Very, very nice. It looks like not really sure the best way I could describe it. From a distance, it kind of looks like the carpet that you'd see in an arcade.
That's actually really good. I was going to come up with, reminds me of a Capri Sun. I don't know if you guys have those out there, but one of those like,
we absolutely
the drinks
do.
in a bag, delicious things.
Yeah.
They're, it kind of reminds me of one of those, but actually carpet in an arcade is about as on point as you could get right there for sure. Maybe if it had some sticky gum and a couple spilled pops on it or something and some popcorn mashed into it, it would be better. But yeah, very cool livery nonetheless. Well, definitely pops for sure. Is Trip Isley actually going to get around him there while we were waffling on about that? We got Josh Justice just behind him, and we're starting to kind of find our pack racing groups here now. People have kind of sorted themselves out. It does look like we do have some racing kind of throughout the entire field, though. We'll try to get to as much of that as we can.
Yeah, it's a Lime Rock race. Of course, we're going to have a lot of racing. As that right there is a big moment from Brian Szynski. I think the calzones may have struck there. Let's see whether or not Brian Szynski may have burnt the roof of his mouth off as he headed his way down into the chicane. You can see him involved in some side-by-side racing down in there. I believe that's Ken Poulin on the inside of him. And contact actually being made. He pops up into the air. That's a problem with that chicane. It's a bit shoehorned in, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, it definitely does. Like, just as a driver, too, it feels a little bit tacked on. It feels a little bit like I just kind of got to get this part over with every lap. And that's just not, in my opinion, the best layout of a track, really, or the best kind of a track. But it offers a unique challenge, and I'm all for stuff like that, for sure, for trying to overcome something like that. And that's kind of what it feels like every lap when you get through there and those things don't get you. Try to go back and have a look at that. Looked like a bit of an ill-advised move potentially there, but unfortunately ended up with him facing backwards, and he's going to lose a bunch of time because of that. We do actually have a meatball there for Nick Tullo as well. Not exactly sure why that is.
Unfortunately there for Nick, he's going to have to drop down and serve that. Interesting fact that I learned only a couple of days ago, and bearing in mind, folks, I have been broadcasting iRacing events for coming up to 3 years now. I did not know this, and I still think there may have been like a change in rules that made this to be the case. If you don't serve a meatball flag after I think about 3 or 4 laps, iRacing will DQ you. It may be different rules that the other series that I was covering had, but I believe that is something in iRacing that it can actually give you disqualification if you don't come in to serve those meatball flags.
Yeah, that is correct. You get 3 laps to get rid of the meatball, and if you don't, it just zaps you out of the race. That's it. Just takes you away. So if he doesn't go serve, it looks like he's in the pit now, actually coming out of pit exit now. Going to lose a ton of time for that one. Very hard to recover in these short races like this, for sure, and draft races as well. But yeah, it's 3 laps and then you get yoinked from the session. Looks like he did make it in, but you never want to see that meatball, for sure. It's pretty much a race ender.
Yes, unfortunately for Tullo, he has come in to serve that penalty, thankfully. However, he is now down in P20. The only driver he's in front of is Jason Grider, who's run his own difficulties in the early stages of this race. As we jump back to the battling up at the front, Samoas, Tullo, Marzuki, and Coliseo all still covered by just about nothing, and setting in some pretty identical lap times as well. The only real pack throughout the entirety of this field that is keeping consistently in the 103 bracket.
Yeah, definitely. Eh? So yeah, it would mean for sure there's probably a little bit more squabbling going in the back. We know these drivers at the front here, tons of experience. Not that the other drivers don't have the experience, but these guys have experience in moving forward and what it takes to move forward and keep pace up. And that's definitely something that, well, it takes a bunch of racing, and it takes being at the front to learn that. It's something I'm still coming to grips with in the SRFs there, is I can get myself up to the front 5, even the front 3 sometimes, but staying up there for 40 minutes and jockeying with those drivers is a whole nother ball game. And it's another skill you have to learn, and it's not easy to do. And you can kind of see that separating the wheat from the chaff here. Often there's a lot more mistakes and so on going perhaps in the packs behind us, and they're not being quite as facilitative with the passes and so on as well. So they lose a little bit more time, and eventually you learn to be a bit more proficient with stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like season after season when we see these races at Lime Rock, you see a bit of an evolution in the way that these drivers tackle the race. The competition always tries to improve. That's one thing about the Weekend Warriors that we absolutely love about it. Drivers always going to show up and try and do the best they can, but the season-on-season growth for competitors, both venerated and new in the Weekend Warriors world, is always absolutely fantastic to see. You take the drivers up at the front, for instance. Felix Samoa is running in P2. The last season, he celebrated 5 years in the Weekend Warriors. He still looks to try and improve week in and week out and put in those good results. Some of the drivers in the Spec 2 category that may be a little bit newer to the Weekend Warriors, they always like to try and put on some good racing. It's just absolutely fantastic to see the level of competition and the level of camaraderie as well in the Weekend Warriors. Absolutely fantastic stuff, as we see a fantastic battle a little bit farther behind us. Nate Coliseo in that 8 car holding on to P4 over the likes of actually no, I will amend myself, that was Trip Isley getting that move done. I was like looking at those cars, I was like, I thought Coliseo was a little bit farther up the road. Turns out he was. My eyes were just deceiving me, as they often do.
Yeah, so you know what, my eyes deceiving me there as well. I believe I may have called Ken Poole and Chris Montgomery earlier there. Very similar paint scheme driving there, maybe even driving style every once in a while as well. We're seeing a pretty good battle here between believe that is, who is that? Brian Hansen, Martin Vesser, our new driver here, and Ken Poulin duking it out pretty good here for a while now. We have definitely broken up into a few different packs. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen there, the orange numbers turning red. You can see Tor just taking the lead now, and behind him, of course, very close, 33 tenths or thousandths of a second there. And then, man, everybody's pretty close together in a few different spots. Hard to figure out where the battle to watch is at the moment. Let's stick with this one for a sec, though. It looks like we're going to get a move done potentially here down into T1.
Yeah, and turn one is always a good overtaking opportunity here in these races. And once again, overtakes getting put on there. Brian Hansen jumping his way up into that final spot inside the top 10. Martin Visser in the 444 car. I believe, unless my memory is doing me wrong, which based off the fact that I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night, it most certainly is. But Martin Visser, I believe I have seen before here in the Weekend Warriors, but if this is his debut, nice to see him out there on the racetrack in that 444 machine, currently holding on to P12 as it stands right now, trying to negotiate with those inside curbs. You can see a bit of a whack as he headed his way off through there. Super tough to try and manage that. Josh, I'm not sure if you have any horror stories about those calzone curbs, as we like to call them.
No, I absolutely do. I think I've probably whacked them in basically every piece of machinery in the service at this point. You know, like I was saying, whenever I see this layout, it kind of entices me because I like Lime Rock, and it's a difficult challenge out here for sure to get this one every lap and get that chicane right every lap without those calzones getting you. But you will body the car on one of those, and basically every kind of car too. Even a GT3 car has a hard time if you don't hit those just right, and you can end up sideways. You can see the size of them there. Those tire whackers for sure, but not an easy section to get through every part of the lap, and it kind of begs you to try a pass, and rarely work through there, as we saw earlier as well. So I think I've got a couple horror stories of my own, probably on the receiving and on the giving end of the calzones.
Yeah, those calzones, it's you bite into it, and next thing you know, you have red hot sauce running down your hand onto your arm, and you are going to get second-degree burns from it. As we look at the side-by-side battling going on once again, Samoas and Tullo duking it out into Big Bend of turn number 1 and 2. Samoas holding on to the inside line. Tullo keeping that momentum rolling on the high side, not able to make it work as they had their way off through 1 and 2, but you can see Tullo beginning to experiment. I think these two, I mean, if we look at the past year of Formula V Weekend Warriors champions in the Spec 1 category, those are your two. Samoa's your reigning champion here. That's the reason why he's got the number 1 on his car. Tullo had it for nearly a full year. He won 3 straight championships before Samoa's got it done throughout the summer. And as much as Tullo, you know, he wants to go back to championship contention. After winning 3 straight and then losing 1, he said at the end of last season that he wants to have that number 1 car back. So I think Tullo and Samoas, as much as they're very experienced, obviously, they're playing cat and mouse with each other, there's still that competitive edge that the both of these drivers have. They want to go into victory lane and get their second wins this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. It's you know, nothing, you know, a competitor wants more than nothing another competitor. You want to have somebody out there that you can race and feel like you beat someone on merit, and I think that's kind of what happened with Felix Samoas and Tor here now. So Tor's sort of dominating for a while. Felix Samoas is able to kind of roll with the punches with him and stay with him, and that's just going to be, you know, it's going to make you more of a competitor that way for sure. You're going to want that. If you're a competitor, that's what you want. And you can see that they seem to actually be kind of dragging some other people with them as well. And that's the way it works. It's what we like to see. That's what's great about these leagues and the Weekend Warriors is you get faster. You know, the drivers around you make you faster. You can't get faster unless you race people that are better than you. And that's just the way it is. And then you learn to kind of hang with them after a while. And before you know it, you're beside Felix Samoas here with Guido pulling up 3rd place, trying to get a podium today again. And we've seen him up there probably every weekend now. So, you know, he's found something, and I wouldn't be surprised if it has to do with these guys.
Guido's had a fantastic run thus far this season, put in a superb performance last time at the Saxon Ring, where after starting that race from the overall pole position, was up at the front throughout a vast majority of it. Guido, after taking a bit of a break throughout Season 3, he's come back with a vengeance here in Season 4. Nice to see him out there on the racetrack, running strong and representing SMB strong as well in that number 19 Fox Anderson Racing Team car. I'm not actually. I can say that we can add Guido's team name to a growing list of various fart/poop related pun team names that we've got, because we've got Guido in the fart car, and we've got usual Extreme Motorsports race director and driver in the Ferrari Road and Oval Challenge on Wednesdays here on SMB, Ryan Cobb, driving for Poo Poo Performance. So we're really shifting gears with team names.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of flatulent and bathroom-related team names out there, it seems, these days, for sure. The Poo Poo Performance being probably one of the better ones there, for sure. And the fart cars we can see written fairly legibly on the side of Guido's car there, and in this shot, actually, not too bad. Yeah, pretty funny stuff. We like to have fun around here for sure. And the liveries are a place you can kind of express yourself a little bit on the cars, like we were saying earlier there. Really good livery makers out there too. I got some done for my car recently from TW3 Liveries there. If anybody's looking for some, you can definitely hit us up. And we know a guy. He makes some good stuff, as we see Coliseo definitely monopolizing on a bit of a mistake from Guido there. So perhaps we should stop talking about him for a little bit.
Yeah, the commentator jinx falling anvil coming right down on Guido. I'm going to have to apologize to him tomorrow after that. He kept it out of the wall, though. Keeps it out there on the racetrack, although it has built a bit of a cushion between your current top two and your drivers running in P3 and P4. Brett Thompson currently down in pit lane right now in the Triple 8 car. Not sure what the deal is there, as we got a 4-pack of Vs heading their way down into turn number 1. Samoas and Tullo were side by side. Coliseo and Marzuki were side by side. They got the lap car to worry about. That, I believe, is Jason Grider in the 552 car on the high side as they headed their way off through turn number 1 and 2. But Tullo, Samoas, Coliseo, and Marzuki, some of the best drivers that we have got in this series, and can't say we're too surprised that they're running up at the front.
Yeah, no, not at all. This seems to be kind of the usual flyers up here, formation flying for us as usual. They're going to catch up to Brian Belinsky here as well. I'm sure he'll get out of the way. Good job for Grider there as well. Did a good job of just kind of getting out of the way, staying out of that fight. Not in an easy spot either. It's actually a lot harder than it seems. You see sometimes just from a camera view, like, why is the person not getting out of the way? Well, it's a lot more difficult than that sometimes. You just can't. You're leaning on the car in a certain way, and you can't get out of the way, or you're trying to predict where the person's going to be, which can sometimes be the worst thing to do. It's better usually just hold a line, as we're seeing happen here. But yeah, lots of fights throughout the field here, as well as we continue to change lead in front. Looks like Nate Coliseo going to move up into second place here now, so I believe that's the first time he's been up that high in the field today. We drop back a little bit farther here to our saying, I'm not sure if he's a new driver with us here, but definitely a returning driver, having a pretty good outing today as well.
Yeah, putting on a very solid drive in that 444 car. Let's see if he can get some moves done and hold on to that spot, as he's side by side with Brian Hansen all through 1 and 2. Holds on to P8 currently, so well done to Visser. I'm going to do a little bit of research here to try and see whether or not he has been a part of some of these racers in the past. The name seems familiar to me, but there are many things that seem familiar to me and end up being pretty far from the case. So I'm going to do a little bit of research, keep tabs on all of this. If he is a newcomer, we do apologize. If he is a newcomer, we can say that he's a newcomer. If he has been racing with the Weekend Warriors for the past 10 years and we just don't recognize him because we've only been doing these broadcasts for the past 2.5 to 3 years, we do apologize. Anyways.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, how many people, I believe there's 4 or 5, maybe 600 people or something like that actually registered in the Weekend Warriors. Me and you have been doing this for 3 to 4 years-ish now. Hundreds, possibly thousands of names and drivers. It's a little bit easy to get them mixed up from time to time, especially if they're not around on a weekly basis. But yeah, you know what? It does sort of ring a bell the more I see it and the more I hear it. I think he's probably been with us before, but either way, good to see him out there, and he's definitely... he's in third place here in S2, so not too bad, with Ken Poulin kind of poking his head in between some of the S2 drivers there, as well as we're watching Nate Coliseo finally take the lead here. of the overall lead, I should say, from Felix Moes, Tor just behind him, and then Guido Marzucci, Steven Hemskirk just behind that. Bit of a gap, actually, between them. Almost looking like we're going 4 wide here, but it's actually going to be 3 wide. Tor going to take the lead, I believe, easily into T1 here. Swapping positions up front pretty good, and you notice that they're not losing a lot of time to the people behind them. Like I was saying earlier, once you can kind of learn how to fly in formation like this well, you get proficient at it, and you stop kind of falling back. You stop wedging people and trying to pass them, and actually facilitating and getting passes done.
And I have actually hit the books and saw that Martin Visser, I believe the earliest that he would have started a Formula V Weekend Warriors race would have been back in August. I believe it probably would have been right towards the end of season 3. It would have been about August 2nd at his earliest. I do not know his exact first start here in this series, but I believe we have seen him before. Regardless, though, he's got a battle on his hands currently as he's trying to dive around the outside of Brian Hansen off into the chicane. Oh, careful on the bumps there, Hansen, as that right there was actually Ken Poulin. I think he hit one of those calzone curbs there a little bit farther up the road, the overcooked calzone, because I think he chipped the tooth over that one.
Yeah, it's definitely, you don't want to whack one of those things. I noticed everybody is avoiding them like crazy. You just don't want to get a tire on them. It's going to be slow. And we saw that sort of, I would say, ill-advised move to try to go up the inside there. I mean, what are you going to do when you have a run like that? Really decided to back out of it, and then it kind of doubly hurts you in the end. So sometimes those runs can hurt you, even when they look like they're going to be on, as we're going 2 wide here with Ken Poulin, and the 444 car is going to win out on that one. Very difficult T1. We got a car pulled off to the side there. I think that's Grider just letting everybody by. So doing a good job of making sure he doesn't get involved in any of these incidents. There is what you're seeing with the car in the grass there. That's not a mistake. That's by design to make sure he's just out of the way there. But yeah, some pretty good driving all around the whole field here.
Yeah, these Formula V drivers always just, even if they're not going for the most outrageous of dives and the most ridiculous of moves, just keeping it clean in these races. And what I gotta say are very tough race cars. Always love to see the level of talent in this series tackling these cars. And here in the Weekend Warriors in the Formula V world, we do have a Friday night draft party for both Europeans and Americans. It used to be just the American one at, I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern time every single Friday night right before these races. And I have participated in some of them, and the joke that I made when we were interviewing the sponsor of today's broadcast, Brian Polanski, the host of the Inside the SCCA podcast, when we were talking to him earlier on, and I said, hey, I remain here in the commentary booth very happily so. I cannot handle these cars. I say that as somebody who normally does very good in open wheelers. I grew up driving karts for 10 years. I can handle an open wheeler better than a sports car. However, the Formula V is a beast that I have not been able to tackle. You think it's a little bit unsuspecting of a car, but these FVs do have their own unique quirks that do make these races completely different than some of the other action that you can see on iRacing, and make them a bit tricky to try and handle. You have to have a different mindset to drive them, frankly.
Yeah, you definitely do. It's a game of chess out there for sure. It's slower moves. You got to think about them a little bit more. The gear shifts are very, very important to get right. Momentum is very important to get right. Your fingertips and toes out there for sure. It's if you try to manhandle the car too much, you can see him throwing a dummy there. I'm sure that's what that was. He's just trying to get him to look in his mirror and maybe smack one of those calzones while he's looking in the mirror, and then he can kind of monopolize on it, I think is what's going on there. But yeah, very different kind of vehicle to drive for sure. Everything happens a little bit slower. You're not really worried about stuff like that as much as you are strategy and drafting and being there at the end and making sure that you can almost trap the drivers around you and stuff. You're setting picks and you're playing more of a strategic game perhaps than in some other cars. Not that there isn't a lot of strategy in other cars too, but it does seem to be a little bit more so here, some treachery going on.
As we get closer and closer to the end of this race, now less than 5.5 minutes on the clock. I want to quickly run through your current class runners. Tortello, top of the field as it stands currently, and top in the Spec 1 category. Ken Hadu, a driver who's made his debut here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors during this season, currently holds on to the Spec 2 lead, and rather comfortably so, with an 8-second gap between himself and Ken Poulin, who runs right in front of some of the other Spec 2 competitors like the likes of Brian Hansen, Martin Visser, and Dan Szynski. There's Hadu in the 555 car, running pretty much all by himself currently. Feeling a little bit lonely out there on the racetrack, slotted down in P7. Jim Brewster, the currently two-time race winner in the Masters category thus far this season, looking to be on track for a third, unless Wayne Buttermore has anything to say about it. Buttermore is a little bit farther behind. You can see him in that very bright and flashy 973 car, slotted in P14. Brewster still looking to hold on to that spot for as long as he can. There's Wayne Buttermore right at the tail end of that pack. Got Parvin Ladar between himself and the lead in Masters. As do want to touch on this, the commentators Jinx and the pre-race interview, Jinx striking, unfortunately for Brian Belansky, who's picked up a black flag over recent moments, and will have to come in to serve that.
Yeah, it looks like we got a few off-track reports here, so, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if that's him just trying to get out of the way of some drivers, having these packs of drivers come by, and he ended up picking up a black flag, just getting out of the way, going off the course. You can, you know, get so many X's kind of getting off the road, and then it black flags you. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he's going to go in and serve that by the looks of it now, as we got Felix Samoes back out in the lead over Tortello, over Nate Colascio, over Guido Marzucci, who's definitely still in the conversation here for the end. Any one of these drivers could take it for sure. We're in the wee hours now, only a few minutes left, lap 25. We're going to swap for the lead here again, I think, going into T1. I was, you know, kind of stifled my own thought there earlier, but T1 just has so many different ways to try to wedge somebody in this corner. You can kind of get in early and you can wedge them early right at apex, or you can kind of overspeed a little bit and get up beside them, maybe in the middle of the corner on the outside or the inside. You can actually make that work because there's just so much there. And then on exit as well, there's so much exit, and in between the next two corners, you can really make people or you can really make someone's life miserable around here if you want to. And we can see them making sure they're working together through those sections so they don't fall too far back.
Yeah, sometimes here in the Formula Vs, you do have to have that sense of camaraderie. Teamwork makes the dream work here in these cars, even if you aren't actually teammates. Felix Samoes holds on to the race lead now over Tortello as they head their way down the hill, under the bridge, into turn number 9, back onto the Samposi straightaway they're going to go, and we get closer and closer to the end of this race. I believe it's now 3 laps left to go here today, with Tortello and Felix Samoes duking it out in a side-by-side fight for the race lead. Nate Colascio and Marzucchi going to follow in this battle for the final podium spot. Look at the likes of Colascio and Marzucchi to potentially strike. Colascio a couple of seasons ago was able to get a win here at this exact racetrack, and I think about Guido and the one win that he has in Spec 1 came a couple of seasons ago at the absolute drafting monster that is Thruxton. Look at Marzucchi to maybe make a lunge on at the very end.
Yeah, definitely. I'm waiting. We know, I mean, he's due for an overall win, and definitely a podium, but an overall win as well. He's due for one. He's got the speed out there. He's always kind of there. He just needs the right race to kind of come to him, I think. You know, he's not one that's going to really go for it and slam one up the inside and kind of take it from someone else. I don't really see that from him, so perhaps, you know, it's going to be a mistake. It's going to be one of those opportunistic moments for him, and maybe this is it. You know, this is one of those races where this last rip down to the straight, basically, you know, it can all happen right there if you get a good exit. So we'll see. He's definitely in the running so far, and you know, we know up front here, though, the likes of Tor and Samoes are just, you know, the reason they win so much is because they're there at the end. They know how to finish for sure. They finish strong often, and that's going to be hard to beat for sure.
Yeah, now with less than a minute left to go on the clock, the white flag going to be in the air this time for your race leaders, as they're 3 wide, a little bit farther behind. This is the battle between Ken Poulin, Brian Hansen, and Martin Visser. Dan Szynski in the midst of all that as well. He's probably going to say, you know what, y'all enjoy that battle. I'm just going to I'm not even gonna bother getting involved in all this. I'm gonna wait for you drivers to maybe run each other off the racetrack and pick up the pieces in case y'all come to blows. This battle for some of the final spots inside the top 10 going to be intense all the way through to the checkered flag. But here's the one that I've got my attention on: the white flag in the air. One more lap of racing action here at Lime Rock, and we started off with Nate Coliseo trying to make a 3 wide down the inside into turn number 1. Is he gonna be able to jump up, slip up into that race lead in the Chiquita Banana car? Survey says that he will, as they head their way out of Big Bend now into turn number 3. Still got Tortello fighting on the inside of him, but Tullo has a handful of his own. That's Guido Marzuki in the number 19 car, holding on to that spot. As much as it was a gutsy and commanding move from Nate Coliseo to jump his way up into the race lead, you gotta wonder whether or not he maybe did it a bit too early. If the start-finish line was, let's just say, here, he would be a race winner today, but it's not. He's still got about a half a mile left to go, and that half mile is taken completely flat out. Can subtract 2 cars out of that battle, though. Samoes and Marzuki go side by side to the second to last turn. Really, the gloves getting thrown off here. That's going to give Tortello the opportunity to not have to worry about the drama going on right behind him and focus on a drag race right to the line here at Lime Rock Park. Who's going to win it here in round number 4? At the line, you're going to give it to Tullo. Tullo does it again.
He did it again. What a guy. Yep, like I said, very, very strong finisher there for sure with in Tortello. He was able to just time that perfectly as usual, and it looks like that fight that we had in the back here definitely spread out a bunch. I'm not sure if something happened. It looks like it did on the last lap there. Martin Visser's got some sort of a crash report here as we're super close. And that one as well is going to be just by a hair. I believe that was Ken Poulin's going to take that one, but we did have an incident with the 444 there on the last lap. We'll have to go back and have a look, but again, Tortello able to pull that out. Amazingly strong finisher for sure, just timing it to perfection as usual.
I don't know what it is about Tortello. He always comes out smelling like a bed of roses in these photo finish situations. That's win number 2 for him here this season, and first driver, I believe, from the entirety of the championship to convert a pole into a win. Man, I'm just about out of breath after calling that finish. First driver to convert a pole to a win in the Spec 1 category this season. Absolutely incredible stuff there as we take a look. Visser, yeah, the calzone bites back.
Oh, it sure did, didn't it? Yeah, you don't want to approach the calzone too quickly, and unfortunately, it looks like that's what happened. I think we're going to see him take a whack on the right front here, and it's going to unsettle the car a little. And then boop, left front, and that's all she wrote. And then we're going to see some avoidance, a little bit of a smack from Wayne Buttermore there. But unfortunately, that's going to take him out of that fight near the end. And what an incredibly close finish up front, though, Ron. Holy cow. Again, Tor with just able to pull it out, man. Something's happening down there.
Yeah, I can just see.
You can't get a shot of it.
I think that was Wayne Buttermore.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, they're deep off in the middle.
Oh,
there we go. That's vaulting up into the air for Stefan Heemskerk. I was going to, I think that's Brian Szynski stuck behind the concrete jersey barriers at the end there. Fun fact for all of you, here at Lime Rock, the current configuration that we have was meant to be the short course. There was meant to be a mountain layout that went off beyond the first turn and extend out through the hill that you see behind there. But here we go. Tortello, I think there's a lot of things that helped him out in this situation. He was in the ample spot, and as I said at the time, with maybe a bit less slurring of the word saying it in retrospect, Samoes and Marzuki, battling as hard as they were, coming out of the chicane down into turn number 8, really, that was the biggest relief that Tortello could have had in the entirety of this race. As soon as that happened, he knew, okay, all I have to worry about is the driver in front of me. Because, I mean, you can see the gap between those cars. In a Formula V, that is basically as large as the Grand Canyon. So, frankly, Tullo only had one thing to worry about, and that is maximizing the run. And he did it 8 thousandths of a second, the gap at the end of this race, according to our live timing tower. And, of course, we'll be able to get those results loaded up for you in just a couple of moments' time. Look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. if you don't like the Formula Vs on iRacing, if you need some convincing, there's all the convincing you need right there. 4 cars covered by the square root of absolutely nothing.
Yeah, pretty amazing racing every week here on the Formula Vs here at Slow Motion Broadcasting for sure. And another incredibly tight finish there at the end. Tortello being able to just time things to perfection. It really is something to watch for sure, for him to be able to do that every race, to be able to go out there and just cut shapes and change position 10, 11 times and then still be there with millimeters to spare at the end every time. Pretty remarkable stuff for sure. And his competitors are going to have to find something. They're going to have to respond to that somehow. They need to find a way to not have him behind them. You got to keep him in front of you or something until the end is what's got to happen. They got to find something. But what an amazing race today again.
Yeah, what a fantastic race for week number 4 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. We'll get those race results loaded up for you in just a couple of moments' time. Let you know what the gaps were at the very end. There it is, 11 thousandths of a second between Tortello and Nate Colacio. I mean, Josh, we've covered this series like pretty much every single show without missing a beat for the past year and change. It still doesn't get old seeing those minuscule gaps at the end of one of these races. Nate Colacio coming up oh so close to finish in P2. Guido Marzuki rounds out your podium in 3rd. Felix Mo is going to finish this race in 4th in front of Stefan Heemskirk in 5th. Josh Justice class in P6. Ken Hadu, your winner in the Spec 2 category, got to finish this race in 7th. Next to Ken Poulin in P8. Brian Hansen finishes this race in 9th with Dan Szynski rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, we got our first Masters driver, the winner of Masters, I should say, Jim Brewster in P11, Wayne Buttermore just behind him in P12. Parvinder Ladar kind of a little bit behind today. I'm expecting him to be a little bit farther up in P13. Must have had some troubles out there. Martin Vassar in 14th place, Brian Szynski in 15th. In 16th, we have Nick Tullo. In 17th, Jason Greider. In 18th, we have Brian Belinsky. In 19th, Brent Thompson. In 20th, Trip Isley. And in Kurt Nunez, the final driver with 21 laps down, unfortunately out very early there in Kurt Nunez.
Yeah, so those are your results at the end of the 4th round of this Formula V Weekend Warriors season here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And hey, if that doesn't give you a good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell, I really don't know what does. That was absolutely awesome stuff. And we've got some drivers looking to have a chat with us at the end of this race. And I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't get things up and rolling by having a chat with your race winner for the 2nd time this season and for the 14th quintillionth time in a photo finish. Tortello joining us now in the commentary booth. Tor, I'm not even going to start off these interviews the way I usually do. I'm just going to ask, how the hell do you always win these photo finishes?
Well, it's just pure luck, I guess. At least in this case, for sure. I thought for sure Nate would have had it at the end there, but I just stayed as close as I could and try and get like the side draft off him, and yeah, it somehow worked out by some miracle.
Yeah, worked out well for you at the end of this race. It was 11,000th at the end of it, and I'm not sure if you have like a chronicle of the photo finishes that you won at. I feel like that is still on the tighter end, because that is, after 30 minutes, that is pretty darn good. That's a matter of inches, frankly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like even with all the photo finishes I've been having a pleasure of being a part of, I think this is one of the closest.
Yeah, a very close finish. Can't say it's the first time, and I can't even say it's probably going to be the last either. But I want to ask you, Tor, about this season. You said right at the end of season 3 how you're gunning to have that number 1 back on your car by the end of this season as we get 2026 started up here a little bit later on this year. So I want to ask you, now with 2 wins in your back pockets after 4 rounds, is that still the goal, or has there been a slight shift?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, so far I've got a 100% win rate for all the races I've started, so yeah, I'm hopefully not gonna miss more than 3, but yeah, that's always the goal, to take back the title. I like 90, but I definitely would like 1 back.
Yeah, I can't necessarily say I blame you. I say that as somebody who drove with the number 2 throughout most of the season. Even after winning championships, I would never put that number 1 on my car, because I remember one time as a kid, after winning all but the final race, I showed up to the final race with a broom in my hand, procuring that I was going to get the season sweep, and then I lost my first race. So I was never a fan of putting a number 1 on my car after that, but worked out well for you in past seasons. Gonna hope to try and get that back here. And now we look ahead to week number 5 at Motorsports Arena Oschersleben in 1 week's time. What are your thoughts heading to that track next time out?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a rain race, and as usual, I love the rain. I absolutely adore the rain. So, and I love Oschersleben as well. So I hope to be at the sharp end, and yeah, just I'm really excited to race with these wonderful people.
Yeah, and certainly looking forward to seeing a wonderful race next time at. May not be great news for Josh's graphics card, but when really is there any good news for a producer's graphics card? But Tor, will as per usual let you give the thanks and shout outs before we let you go and celebrate.
Big thank you to Brabham Motorsport for their continued support and just everything I do. And yeah, big thanks to everyone I was racing with today, Felix, Nate, Guido. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, big thanks to SMB for a great broadcast as usual.
Yeah, we always like to have a good time on these shows, as you had a good time out there on the racetrack, and looking forward to seeing what the rest of the season has for you, Tor. Thank you for joining us here in the booth, and well done on the win.
Thank you for having me.
And that right there was Mr. Photo Finish himself, Tortello, joining us here in the broadcast booth. And Josh, he didn't get the Masters win, but he's Weekend Warriors and Ray Esports stalwart. He's up there in the broadcast booth and walked away from this race with a P12 result. So I will let you have a chat with the driver of the 973 car, that being the man himself, Wayne Buttermore.
Wayne, how goes it, man? You got a P2 in Masters today. Not an easy layout here with the with what we're dubbing those curbs, calling them the calzones there of the track over by the chicane. Not an easy chicane to get through every lap. How was it for you out there?
Pretty good. I had some early struggles with something happened going into the chicane right on the first lap, and I got separated from the group for a little while, and then later on ended up pairing up with Jim, and we were able to close the gap up a little bit on those in front of us. During qualifying, those bumps in the chicane upset me twice, so I only got one solid qualifying lap in there. Didn't improve on that, so it proved to be a bit of a challenge there.
Yeah, it can be definitely difficult around here. I think we've all been to Lime Rock a bunch. We've all been here a bunch of times, but the chicane layout maybe not quite as much. And every time I see this layout, it kind of cringe a little bit that it's going to be a bit of a difficult one, especially on the first few laps. But you're able to hold in there for sure. Look like you're jockeying for position a little bit. Definitely a bit of a draft track down the front into T1 there as well. You guys were side by side a whole bunch. Was able to pull out a P2. Is there anybody you'd like to thank out there today?
Yeah, well, naturally, I'd like to thank the administrators and Stevie Ray, but Jim, Michelle, Brian, Jason, there's a bunch of people that do a lot of work to do this. Brian Belensky for sponsoring today's race. It's always great to have everybody contribute in that way so that we get to have these races broadcast. Of course, like I usually do when I make it up to the booth here, which isn't all that often, but it's been more often than I'm used to over the last month or so. But my wife for giving me the time to come out and play with everybody and have fun on a Saturday afternoon. So
awesome. Well, we love having you up in the booth. It's great to have you up here more. You're finding some pace. I think we're actually headed out to Oschersleben next round, and it looks like it's going to be raining as well. Are you looking forward to that one or not so much?
I struggle in the rain a little bit, so we'll see what happens out there. Hey, I want to thank Josh and Ron up there in the booth as well. You guys do a fantastic job making the show look good. So I'm give you your props there as well.
Oh, thanks for the kind words there, Wayne. We love seeing you out there for sure. You've been there, since I started this, since me and Ron started this. So great to see you out there. Great to see you taking some podiums and stuff too. And we'll see you next week at Oschersleben.
Sounds good. See you then.
Have a good week.
Thanks.
And that right there was Wayne Buttermore, P2 in the Masters category and P12 at the end of this race. And that looks like the only drivers that want to have a chat with us at the end of this broadcast, Josh. But what a race. What a race that we had here at Lime Rock on this new configuration that I feel like did not disappoint.
Yeah, Lime Rock always seems to kind of provide some darn good racing for sure, and maybe not so much sometimes with that chicane can take some people out, but we have a lot of really experienced drivers here in the Weekend Warriors, and it looks like they were able to manage that chicane that we're looking at right now pretty well with those, what we're dubbing the cow zones. I'm not sure if that's going to stick, but we'll try. But yep, it's a good one. I think Ossersleben next week as well. Really do like that track a lot. Should be interesting to see it in the rain. With the V's, some liking it, some not so much. Be an interesting one for sure, Ron.
Yeah, Ossersleben, just another part of the absolutely amazing coverage that we've got here on Slow Motion Broadcasting to look forward to over the coming weeks. And this weekend, we have got you absolutely covered with SMB shows, what feels like pretty much around the clock. Only show today. However, tomorrow, we've got you covered. We've got 4 broadcasts to look forward to just tomorrow here on SMB. The FF1600 is going to be running at Bathurst for their latest round of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. And a reminder, folks, sponsorship still available for the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. If you would like to sponsor the broadcast and make them possible, you can by joining the SMB Discord server, linked either in the description of this broadcast or onto the SMB YouTube channel itself. And again, contact with Mr. Stevie Ray to figure out how to sponsor that absolutely incredible series and the sister series, shall we say, to the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors that are going to be running at Sebring on the Clubland later on that day. And then we've got a double feature on Sunday night with XSLR running the 6th round of their series, the second race with the big block modified cars at USA International Speedway, followed about 20 minutes afterwards by the first race of the iRacing Liberty Bell series, the series organized by the same folks from the Philly region of the SCCA, going to be running MX5 Cup cars at Lime Rock Park. So hey, if you're in the mood for some Lime Rock action, we have got you covered in the days that precede this show. American Muscle Series going to be running their second to last round of this season this upcoming Tuesday, followed later on that night by SRG F4 running at Circuit of the Americas. Sim Racers Group F3 going to be at the Red Bull Ring, and of course next time out, you can catch the action from Ossersleben running on the Grand Prix course with a little bit of rain in the forecast. That's all the stuff to look forward to here on SMB. And before tomorrow's shows, happy to take a look at either some of the YouTube shorts that we've got posted up here on the SMB channel or the September highlights reel posted just a couple of weeks ago. But as for this broadcast here for round number 4 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here at Lime Rock, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's show, I say thank you also very much for tuning into the action on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.